Japan has a big secret. Japan has a big secret. Its rules, called the Constitution, say it cannot have a military. But Japan actually has one of the largest militaries in the world. It spends a lot of money on defense. This is a strange situation for a country that officially has no army. To make things fit the rules, Japan gives its military equipment different names. For example, large ships that carry fighter jets are not called aircraft carriers. Instead, they are officially called helicopter destroyers. Tanks are called special vehicles. The whole military is not called an army or navy. It is called the Self-Defense Forces, SDF. This makes people ask an important question. Is Japan's idea of peace a very strong belief, which came from the terrible World War II? Or is this idea changing now? Maybe it was just a useful way to live after the war, with America helping with defense. Today, the world around Japan is more dangerous. This old idea of peace might be about to change. Japan must decide if its deep wish for peace is still its main value, or if it needs to become a more typical country with a clear army. This book will look at how Japan got here and what might happen next. 2. The war ends. Japan faced terrible destruction at the end of World War II. The country was completely broken, both physically and in spirit. More than 3 million Japanese people died. This was about 4% of all people in Japan at that time. It was a huge loss of life for the nation. American planes firebombed many Japanese cities with great force. In March 1945, Tokyo suffered a massive attack. Around 100,000 people died in just one night from the fires. This number of deaths was even higher than those from either atomic bomb that would fall later. 60% of Tokyo was completely destroyed. 66 other large cities across Japan also saw similar widespread damage. In total, American bombing campaigns killed over 330,000 Japanese civilians and left 8 million people without homes. Then, the atomic bombs fell on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August, killing another 200,000 people. The country was left in deep ruins and ash. This total defeat was a huge psychological shock for the Japanese people. For many centuries, they had believed in their country's divine protection and military strength. The reality of losing the war shattered these core beliefs about their identity and purpose. On August 15, 1945, the Emperor announced Japan's surrender, telling his people they must endure the unendurable. This deep trauma led to a strong feeling against any military actions. The large military system that had controlled Japanese society before the war simply ceased to exist, bringing a powerful change. Into this difficult situation stepped General Douglas MacArthur and the American occupation forces. General MacArthur was in charge of Japan from 1945 to 1951. He understood that Japan needed to change to a peaceful nation.
He played a key part in creating Japan's new constitution. The most famous part of this new law was Article 9. This article was very revolutionary. It said that the Japanese people would forever renounce war as a sovereign right. It also clearly stated that land, sea, and air forces, as well as other war potential, will never be maintained. This article was designed to make sure Japan would never again be able to go to war, laying a clear path for a future of peace. 3. A new army. After World War II, Japan had no army. But soon the world changed. The Cold War started. America began to worry a lot about new threats. They saw communism spreading quickly in Asia. When China became a communist country in 1949, American fears about Soviet power in Asia grew much stronger. Then a very important event happened. In June of 1950, the Korean War began. North Korean forces attacked South Korea. This war meant that America had to send many soldiers to Korea. This drained American forces that were stationed in Japan. Suddenly, Japan's lack of a military seemed like a dangerous problem for the United States, not a good thing. General Douglas MacArthur, who had helped write Japan's peace constitution, now pushed Japan to build some kind of army again very quickly. Japan's government had to be very careful. The new constitution clearly said Japan could not have a military. So they found new ways to create a defense force without calling it an army. On August 10, 1950, they started the National Police Reserve. This group was officially for keeping peace inside the country. But it was more than just police. It had 75,000 members and slowly received stronger, more complex weapons. They kept up the idea that it was not a military by calling tanks special vehicles and army bases camps. Over time, this police reserve grew bigger and stronger. By 1952, it was called the Police Reserve Force and had tanks, artillery, and other heavy weapons supplied by America. These weapons were much more than what a normal police force would use. Finally, on July 1, 1954, the Self-Defense Forces, SDF, were officially created. To make this possible, special words and clever legal ideas were used. Japanese government lawyers argued that the Constitution's ban on war potential only applied to weapons used for attacking other countries. They said that if Japan's forces were only for defense, then they were allowed. Also, members of the SDF were called special civil servants, not soldiers. If they broke laws, they went to regular civilian courts, not military ones. This was how Japan slowly built a real defense force while still trying to follow its peace constitution. 4. A culture of peace. Peace became very important to Japanese society after the war. It was not just a rule, but a deep part of how people lived and thought. This idea of peace grew strong through different parts of society. Schools and teachers played a big role. The Japan Teachers Union, a strong group of teachers, worked hard to teach peace. They did not just focus on salaries, but on keeping Japan's peaceful values alive. Teachers often took students to peace museums. They also shared stories from people who lived through the war. The phrase, "never again," became a common lesson. It taught students to promise loyalty to peace, not to war. This way, children learned that peace was a basic part of being Japanese. Peace museums also helped keep this memory strong. Japan has around 50 peace museums. This is more than many other countries. The Hiroshima Peace Memorial Museum is very famous. Over 53 million people have visited it. It is a place where many Japanese students go to learn. They hear stories from hibakusha, who are survivors of the atomic bomb. These personal stories show the horror of war. Smaller peace museums in cities like Hiroshima and Nagasaki, sometimes even in elementary schools, also teach children about peace every day. This makes the history of war a constant reminder. Japanese universities also showed resistance to military ideas. The Science Council of Japan, a group of scientists, asked academics not to do military research. They said it would harm scientific freedom. Many big universities, like Tokyo University, said no to money for defense research. They believed working with the military went against Japan's peace principles. They saw it as a moral issue. However, recently, with more dangers in the region, some resistance has started to weaken. More universities are now applying for defense research money. Public opinion in Japan shows a strange mix. People strongly support peace and keeping Article 9 of the Constitution, which bans war. Few Japanese want to fight for their country. At the same time, many people want Japan to have stronger defense forces. Over 60% support making Japan's defense stronger. They also support the self-defense forces, with over 90% having good views of them. This means people want to protect their country without starting wars. It is like defensive pacifism. They want a strong defense, but no real army for attacking. Younger Japanese people show even more support for the self-defense forces. This shows how Japan balances peace ideals with the need for safety. This strong culture of peace acts like a firewall. It stops Japan from becoming a military country again, despite having strong defense forces. It shows how Japan manages to have power but still believes in peace. 5. Dangerous neighbors. Japan's safety is facing many new problems. The area around Japan is becoming more dangerous. The country is now surrounded by a difficult security situation. Experts often call this the Krink Challenge. This name points to the growing threats from China, Russia, and North Korea. These three powerful countries together create a very complex and serious challenge for Japan's safety. China is a big long-term worry for Japan. Its military is getting much stronger and bigger very quickly. This growth in military power directly threatens Japan's ability to defend itself. Chinese military aircraft often fly near Japanese airspace. Also, large Chinese Navy ships
including groups with aircraft carriers, now regularly sail close to Japanese islands. China also uses what are called gray zone tactics. These are small, careful actions designed to slowly change who controls land or water without starting a full war. These actions make the region very unstable and challenging for Japan. North Korea is another immediate and serious threat. Its programs for nuclear weapons and missiles have grown surprisingly fast. North Korean missiles can now reach all parts of the Japanese islands.
Also, intelligence says these missiles can carry nuclear warheads. North Korea has developed new missiles that use solid fuel, which means they can launch quickly. Some of these missiles can even strike the United States mainland. This changes how Japan and its allies think about protecting themselves. Japanese fighter jets often have to take off quickly or scramble to meet unknown aircraft. In one recent year, Japanese jets scrambled over 700 times, with many responses to planes from China and Russia. Russia, too, has become a more aggressive country in the region after its 2022 invasion of Ukraine. It has placed modern military equipment on islands that Japan also claims. Russian bomber planes often fly near Japanese airspace, sometimes even flying together with Chinese aircraft. This shows that Russia and China are increasing their military cooperation. These actions from China, North Korea, and Russia make Japan's security situation very difficult and complex. Japan must find new ways to protect itself in this changing and more dangerous world. 6. Changing the rules. Japan faced many new dangers. Leaders had to think about how to keep the country safe. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe led these changes. He was Prime Minister for a long time. He wanted Japan to have a stronger role in world safety. Abe called his idea proactive pacifism. He said Japan could help peace more by taking action. This was a new way to think about Japan's peaceful rules. The government then changed how it understood the Constitution. Before, Japan could only defend itself. Now, it could help close friends if they were attacked. This is called collective self-defense. This change came in July 2014. It was a cabinet decision, but there were strict rules. First, a country important to Japan had to be attacked. Second, Japanese people had to be in danger. Third, there had to be no other way to help. And fourth, Japan could only use a little force, only what was needed. Some people did not like this. They said it went against Japan's peaceful past. They called it militarism in a new form. But Abe believed it was important for Japan's future. The new security laws passed in 2015. They stayed in place even after new elections. Japan also had a changing relationship with the USA. For many years, the USA helped Japan with its defense. The USA wanted Japan to do more for its own protection. American leaders sometimes said Japan was not paying enough. They wanted Japan to spend more on its military. This made the relationship difficult at times. Japan, on the other hand, saw the alliance as a way to stay peaceful. It helped Japan focus on its economy.
But some Japanese people worried if the USA would always help. They started to think Japan needed to be more ready to defend itself alone. These changes showed Japan was looking for new ways to stay safe in a dangerous world. 7. Modern weapons. Japan is now putting a lot of effort into developing new kinds of military technology. The country wants to stay safe in a world with complex threats. To do this, Japan is spending much more money on modern weapons and defense systems. These new systems are different from older tanks or fighter jets. They focus on future battles. A big part of this investment is in unmanned systems. These include drones that can fly high in the air, move across the sea, or travel underwater. Some drones are even designed to hit enemy targets, like a suicide attack, meaning they are destroyed in the process. Japan is also investing in artificial intelligence, which allows computers to think and make decisions, and in cyber warfare, which involves fighting bad actors in computer networks and online spaces. These new types of fighting need very advanced technology. Another important development is Japan's counter-strike missiles. These are long-range missiles. They have the power to attack enemy bases and launch sites even if they are far away. Japanese leaders say these missiles are needed to stop an attack before it reaches Japan. They are meant to be a way to prevent harm by showing Japan can hit back. However, these powerful new weapons change how people see Japan's military. It becomes harder to say these weapons are only for defense. For many years, Japan used special names for its military equipment and forces. This helped to keep the idea that Japan did not have a traditional army. But with these new, very advanced technologies, it is becoming very difficult to maintain that idea. When Japan uses smart satellites to gather information, deploys advanced missile defense systems, and uses artificial intelligence in its defense, its self-defense forces look more and more like a powerful, modern military. These new tools challenge the old definitions and make it clear that Japan is building a highly capable defense force. 8. What happens next? Japan is now at an important point in its history. For many years, Japan has had a strong defense force, even though its constitution says it cannot keep a military. This situation, often called the pacifist paradox, has created a difficult path for the nation. Today, this old way of doing things is changing because of new dangers in the world and evolving ideas within Japan itself. Japan is slowly becoming what many experts call a normal country. This means it is acting more like other nations that openly have regular armies. Its defense budget is growing steadily, reaching record-high levels not seen since the early period after the Second World War. Public opinion in Japan is also changing. More and more people are becoming comfortable with the self-defense forces having stronger weapons and taking on more important duties.
Even the names used for Japan's military ships and equipment are becoming more direct. For example, large ships that were once called helicopter destroyers are now sometimes called aircraft-carrying multi-role cruisers. This small but important change in names shows a bigger move towards being more honest about Japan's growing military power. But Japan's deep culture of peace is still a very strong force. It works like an important brake on this process of military normalization. Schools continue to teach children about the importance of peace and why war causes great suffering. Peace museums, especially in cities like Hiroshima and Nagasaki, constantly remind everyone about the terrible results of war. These places show the lasting trauma from World War II and keep the memory alive. Also, the Constitution's special rules still make it very difficult for Japan to have a full, open military like most other countries. This strong cultural background means that the move to become a normal military power is not fast or easy. Many people still want to protect Japan's unique pacifist identity and values. However, the world around Japan is becoming increasingly dangerous. Countries like China are growing their military power rapidly, and Russia is becoming more active in the region. North Korea's nuclear missiles are a serious and direct threat. There is a real risk of a sudden big problem, such as a military fight over Taiwan, a nuclear attack from North Korea, or a complete breakdown in important international relationships, especially between the United States and China. If such a crisis happens, Japan might have to make a very hard choice.
It could have to decide between its peaceful ideals and what it needs to do to keep itself safe and independent. This is a very big and serious decision for Japan's future and for peace in Asia. Japan's unique story offers important lessons for other countries. It shows how difficult it is to manage military power and peace at the same time. It asks a fundamental question. Can a nation be strong enough to protect itself, but still stay truly peaceful and not start wars? Japan has tried to answer this question for a long time, with its special way of thinking about its self-defense forces. The future of this idea is not yet clear. It will depend not only on the decisions of Japanese leaders, but also on the wisdom of its allies and the actions of its neighbors. What do you think? Can a country be strong in defense, but still truly peaceful? Or will power always lead to conflict?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.